Email marketing is one of the most responsive marketing channels, but only when it's done correctly. I always sit down with different clients and I'll talk about what they've done in the past, what's worked, what hasn't worked. And every once in a while, I do end up talking to someone who says, email marketing just doesn't work for us. We've spent all this money. We didn't get anyone to come in as a hot lead. And obviously, no one converted to a sale. And then I'll say, okay, let's go back and look at everything. What did you do? What lists did you use? What was your messaging? And inevitably, we always find out something that there was a disconnect, and that's why they didn't get any results. It wasn't that email marketing itself does not work. It just maybe wasn't going to the right people, or it wasn't the right message to the right people, or at the right time. So today I thought it was important for me to talk about email marketing and how to find quality lists. Because another thing companies are so scared about right now is if they use an email marketing list, they want to make sure it's only going to enhance their brand. They don't want it to tarnish their brand. They don't want to get blacklisted. Because we all know if we get blacklisted, you are shut down for a while and you've got to go through a lot of things to get your company off of that. So as we jump in now, there are two things you have to start with before you start thinking about lists. The first thing is you have to know and truly understand your audience. Now you might say, well, Donna, that is not the same thing, knowing and understanding your audience. But no, it's not. What I mean by that is, one, you know them. So you know what like title and industry or company size they're at. But when you understand them, that's when you'll know what kind of messages they'll resonate with. You'll know what channels they're on. And that's where you get to understand them. You understand them by knowing their pain points or their challenges, because then you're able to create that marketing message that definitely will resonate with them. So the first thing before you get started even thinking about email list is to know and understand your audience. The second thing is, what are you trying to achieve? As a business, you're always trying to go out there, promote yourself to get sales. But when you do different marketing initiatives across different channels, you have to have goals. And I know anyone who's listened to me before, I will talk about SMART goals. You've got to set goals so you know when they're reached. And you have to know what you're heading towards. You almost treat your goals like your North Star, so that everything you do with your marketing is heading towards that North Star. It gives you that direction. Because if we just go out there and throw out different marketing content, so let's say you say, oh, let's just get a high schooler to do our social media. They'll just post stuff out there. But that's not it. You need to have a strategy. You need to have a strategy so those social posts can help complement what you might be doing with email marketing, or even what you might be doing with display ads or print ads or sponsorships at a trade show. When you do this and you take the time to understand your goals and the strategy you want, that is when the real good stuff happens. And why it's the good stuff, why I say it's the good stuff, is because that's when you are going to be putting out marketing messages that help build that relationship with that prospect or even your customers. Because when you build a strong relationship, it instills trust. And when you're able to instill trust, that's when people will buy from you. And they won't buy from you just once. They'll come back to you over and over. But you have to take the time to know those two things. know and understand your audience, and then what you're trying to achieve, and then set out a strategy. Now, as I mentioned, email marketing is still one of the most responsive marketing channels. And the reason why is your message is being sent directly to them. It's not like you're posting a banner with hopes that that individual sees it. It's not that you're doing a social post, same thing, with hopes that they see it. And it's not like you're putting it out there for everyone, hoping that your specific target audience, one, sees it at that time. But if you do an email marketing campaign that's strategic, meaning you find a source or a list that is specific to your target audience, you're able to deliver an email marketing message to that individual that they'll resonate with. So let's jump in. When you're looking for an email marketing list, there are two types of lists. One, there are compiled lists. And compiled lists are usually a list that is a combination of email addresses from all different sources. These can be great sources when you are trying to really hit one, either a broad audience, or you're trying to use it just to fill in maybe little spots in your campaign. They're great. They're less expensive. Sometimes you usually don't see as high of a response rate, but that's why at the end of your campaign, you would calculate out your cost per click. And that helps you figure out what worked and what didn't. So we have your compiled list, which are broader files that are a combination of email addresses from a variety of sources. Usually the selection criteria is not as specific. So like I said, they are great if you want to do something broad. So say top management or decision makers of beverage manufacturers. I'm a little tongue-tied here today. So beverage manufacturers, they can help you. But if I'm looking for a list that maybe wants to reach pharmaceutical manufacturers in Europe that might be interested in HPLC machine, then compiled is not the way to go. This is when you have to start looking at industry-specific sources. And so these are called response lists. Response in that the individual had to respond to an offer. They had to subscribe to the magazine. They had to join the association, or they had to attend a conference. These response lists usually cost more per thousand, but when you do your research and find the right list that reaches your target audience with the right message, you can see some unbelievable results. I've seen some of my clients get as high as an 8% click-through rate, but that's only because we were being very specific on the segment of the list we were choosing, and we were sending them the right message. But how do you find these lists? You know, I know the compiled part might be easy for you because we all get those messages every day. You know, you can go to Dun & Bradstreet or Hoover's or Zoom. Zoom is the one a lot of my clients have where you can look it up and you can get the records. But if you want to start looking at industry-specific files, there are a few things you need to do. The first thing is Google. So you take some of your key phrases and you Google it. So pharmaceutical manufacturing magazines, for instance, I would put that up, and in the Google results, I would end up seeing several different publications that I know I could reach out to. So it could be Pharmaceutical Manufacturing Magazine. It could be Bioprocess International. Whatever it is, once you figure out what sources you want to contact, you make a list. And afterwards, after you listen to this, if you want worksheets that I have worked out where you can fill in those sources, questions you want to ask, and everything I'm reviewing really here today, let me know and I can send you some slides on that. But you want to go out and you want to get a list. So you start writing down different magazines that come up, different conferences that might come up. And then you contact these sources and you find out about their advertising. So on most of their websites, you can go, you can see advertising, and you want to pull up the media kit. Why you want to look so closely at their media kit is because you want to understand who their subscribers are, who is attending their conferences, because this is where you go and you try to match it up to your target audience to see if it's a good fit. Once you get an idea that a publication or a conference is a good fit, that's when you have to reach out to them and talk to them directly. Most of the vendors that have these industry-specific sources are quite aware that if they help you achieve great results, you'll come back over and over for business, sort of like what you're doing, and building a relationship with the individual that instills trust so you buy from them over and over. These vendors are the same way. They totally understand that they need to help you achieve the best results, and then you'll be back over and over. I even had vendors who said, sorry, I can't help you. This is not the right market for you. And they'll give suggestions of other publications to contact. But that's all about going in and talking to quality vendors. They're not interested in that one-off sale. They're not interested in selling you a big, broad list that you're going to send generic messages to. They are interested in really talking to you and whittling down their list to reach the most specific audience for what you have to offer. So like I said, you give them a call. You ask them about their audience. You explain to them what you're trying to achieve. You talk to them about your product or service and ask their suggestion. What is their suggestion on getting you the best response? What email marketing messages does their audience respond to the most? For example, if you're going after engineers, I know for a fact, after doing several campaigns, engineers are not really interested in great images or pictures. They want to get to the meat of it. They want to see the text that shows them that this product will help them manufacture whatever they're doing. They want to get to the meat of it. So don't worry about your design. Worry about the content. And tell them, will this save them time? Will they be able to produce it faster? Is it of a higher quality? Whatever it might be, that's what they're looking for. And then you talk about costs. As I mentioned earlier, the compiled sources are less expensive, and you can usually deploy to more records. Now, compiled sources in the price range, you'll usually see it around that 100 per 1,000 price range, and you usually have to do a larger quantity. Now, I'm giving ballparks here because please understand, every list owner is different. The prices that they offer are different. The services they offer are different. And that's another reason why you either have to contact each source directly, or you can call a list broker, a reputable list broker, and they can help you do that research. That's where we jump in at our company. We end up helping companies find those good quality lists. Because we've been in the industry for so many years, there's certain vendors we know to stay away from. And then there's a few that we know what is the best criteria to pull to get the best results and what type of messaging to use. We also know which vendors can maybe flip an order very quickly, because maybe you have to get something out, let's say, before the holidays. And so you need this done within the next 2 days. We know which sources can do that and which ones can't. And that's where a list broker offers you that expertise. It saves you a lot of legwork. but then leaves the decision up to you on what you want to use. So it's always good. That's a good way to use it, especially if you have a small marketing team. If you have a large marketing team and you're going to do it in-house and directly yourself, that is great, but it takes time. And so you got to make sure you keep your information together in regards to the pricing of the list, in regards to what segments you can pull, and then what type of results you'll receive. Okay, so compiled, let's say it's around that 100 per thousand range. Now, if you're looking at industry specific files, so like your Pharmaceutical Manufacturing Magazine or Bioprocess International or Metal Forming Magazine, whatever the magazine is, those are usually in that ballpark if you're segmenting. Now, I know some vendors out there are offering, take the entire list and they'll offer a discounted rate. That you have to keep in mind is a large majority of the entire file going to be interested in what you have to offer. Because you don't really want to be sending your messages to people who wouldn't be interested in your offer, because that's when they could opt out of your list or the other messages. That's where people might complain. So you want to make sure that your messages are only being presented to the right audience. But these industry specific files, as I mentioned, can be between $300 per thousand to $450 per thousand. But this is where, when you talk to them, you figure out how many records would be most appropriate, and then you figure out the cost. And I always say, start with a small test order. Always test, and if it works well, then roll it out for more. But don't waste your money on something you're not sure if it'll work or not. So you get it, you pay for it, you do that test order, and then calculate out your cost per click, and then your cost per hot lead, and even those that bought. For instance, I've even had a list where I did not think it was a very good list. We didn't get a very good response rate from it. I probably would not recommend it to the client again, except the client came back with back-end information and told me they were, from that list, they got their largest buyer. And what that person purchased took care of all their marketing costs and then some. So this is where I may not recommend the list again based on what tracking I saw, but then because the client and I have an open communication, and so I was able to hear the back end information, that list stays on all proposals now. And so you need to figure out the right list for your marketing campaigns, test it out. Make sure when you're talking to any vendors, there are three things. You want to make sure that every record on that file is opted in to getting third-party messages. That's very important. Opted in. You have to make sure that the files are cleaned and updated regularly. You don't want a list where maybe someone subscribed to a magazine 10 years ago and they haven't cleaned and updated the file. So you want to make sure it's updated and compliant. And then usually I will tell vendors, take the most engaged records. And that means the individuals that engage the most with them, because then that shows that they have a real interest in this industry and they're looking for new things all the time. The third thing, this is extremely important. You have to make sure that they are compliant, the records. So now, we're talking about obviously US and international. We've all heard of GDPR overseas, but now individual states, you've got to make sure that the file is completely compliant. Because the last thing you want to do is use a source that, one, doesn't enhance your brand, but then it might tarnish your brand. So you don't want to do that. Every marketing effort you do, you want it to always enhance your brand and get the word out about your brand. And of course, that's another conversation altogether. It could be, branding versus lead generation. But any marketing you do, you are always branding. Even if someone doesn't buy, if they've read your subject line and your from line, branding. Coca-Cola puts messages up all over the place. It's not that I drink soda, but you see it. You see that branding over and over. And same thing, every time your name is out there in the public, you are branding. So you've got to make sure you do it in a quality fashion with a quality list. You don't want to be using a junky old list. You don't want to use a list that someone is going to sell you. And you don't want to use a list that, someone on your sales team found this list of 500. Let's just go throw it in our, email marketing platform. Because if those people haven't opted in from your messages, that's where you can get in trouble. So to find good quality email lists, start from the beginning. Know and understand your audience. Make sure that you have set out what your marketing goals are and how you want to achieve them. And then do your due diligence and your research on what lists will be best. Because when you can put your message in front of the right audience at the right time, that is when you're going to achieve success. And email marketing is one of the most responsive channels, but only when it is done correctly. I hope this has helped you out. Please feel free to contact me at any time. Make sure you understand that, list vendors out there, the good quality list vendors are willing to work with you. They are willing to talk to you about what you're trying to accomplish and who you're trying to reach. And they will give you guidance on the best things to do because they want it to work for you. So go out, start doing your research to find your target audience from industry-specific publications and conferences, and even good quality compiled sources can help supplement that. Talk to you soon, and if you need anything, please feel free to contact me at dpeterson, Peterson, at worldinnovators, INNOVATORS.com. Have a great day.